An ordinary grocery trip turns into an unforgettable showdown when an elderly woman tells a young black man to go back to Africa. What he says next doesn't just silence the room, it changes everything. The grocery store was alive with the hum of daily errands. Shoppers pushed their carts through the aisles, some lost in thought, others chatting quietly. It was a sunny afternoon in a small neighborhood in Ohio, a place where everyone seemed to know everyone. Near the produce section, an elderly woman, probably in her late 70s, stood adjusting her glasses. She had an air of impatience, muttering under her breath as she reached for a bag of apples. Her faded cardigan and carefully pinned silver hair gave her an unassuming look. But what followed was anything but ordinary. A young black man, tall and dressed casually in a blue hoodie and jeans, approached the same stand, reaching for a bag of oranges nearby. His name was Daryl. Calm and polite, he seemed to blend effortlessly into the flow of the store. While texting on his phone and balancing a basket of groceries, he exuded the air of someone simply getting through his day. Then it happened. The elderly woman turned sharply, her eyes narrowing as she noticed Daryl. Her expression hardened in an instant, and her lips pressed into a thin line. "You people don't belong here," she said, her voice loud enough to cut through the ambient store chatter. Daryl froze. His fingers hovered over his phone as he processed her words. The woman, emboldened by her own comment, went further. "Why don't you go back to Africa where you came from?" The air in the store seemed to shift. A couple of shoppers paused mid-stride. A young mother near the dairy section steered her child away quickly, while others exchanged uneasy glances. The rhythmic hum of the store came to a halt, replaced by a silence so profound it seemed to echo. Daryl's initial reaction was shock. His brow furrowed as though he couldn't believe what he'd just heard. For a moment, it looked like he might lash out, but instead, he took a deep, measured breath. The elderly woman stood firm, still clutching her apples. Her stance was unapologetic, her chin raised defiantly as if daring him to respond. The onlookers waited, their curiosity and unease mingling in the silence. Daryl shifted his basket to his other hand and straightened his posture. His presence seemed to grow larger, his calmness commanding attention. "Ma'am," he began, his tone steady and deliberate, "do you even realize what you just said?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, not just to her, but to everyone within earshot. She responded without hesitation. "I said what I said. This is my country. People like you don't belong here." The crowd collectively held its breath. Daryl let the pause stretch, his calm composure unbroken. "You said I don't belong here," he said finally, his voice steady but firm. "Let me tell you something about where I come from." And then, with quiet dignity, he began to tell his story. "My great-great-grandfather was born in Mississippi," Daryl said, his words measured, carrying the weight of history. "He was a sharecropper, working land he didn't own, breaking his back so his kids might have a better life. His father, he was a slave, kidnapped, beaten, and sold like property. And for what? To help build the very country you're standing in right now." The elderly woman's face flushed, but she said nothing. "My grandfather," Daryl continued, "fought in World War II. He risked his life for this country, a country that treated him like dirt when he came back. He couldn't sit at the same counters, couldn't drink from the same fountains. But he stayed. Do you know why? Because he believed in this country's promise, even when it didn't believe in him." The room was utterly silent now. Even the hum of the refrigerators seemed muted. "My parents," he said, his voice softening, "fought too, not with guns, but by working hard every day. My mom's a teacher. She spent her life helping kids, no matter what they look like. My dad's a mechanic, the kind of man who'd stop on the side of the road to help someone like you if your car broke down." He paused, his gaze steady. "So you're telling me I don't belong here? That I should go back to Africa?" He shook his head slowly, his voice tinged with sadness. "Ma'am, I am as much a part of this country as you are, maybe even more. My family has paid for it in blood, sweat, and tears." The elderly woman's lips trembled. Her hands clutched the apples tightly, but she said nothing. Daryl stepped back slightly, addressing the crowd now. "Ignorance doesn't get better in silence. It's up to all of us to be better than words like those." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. A middle-aged man stepped forward and said, "He's right. We've got to be better than this." The applause began hesitantly but quickly grew into something undeniable. People clapped not just for Daryl's words, but for the courage it took to confront hate with dignity. The elderly woman turned and walked away, her face pale. The tension in the store lifted, replaced by quiet reflection. Daryl smiled faintly, picking up his basket again. He didn't look triumphant, just thoughtful. "Sometimes," he said softly, "it's not about winning or losing. It's about making sure people hear the truth." Moments like these remind us of the power of kindness, strength, and truth in the face of ignorance. They teach us that standing up doesn't always mean shouting. It can mean speaking calmly with conviction and letting the truth do the rest. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Together, we can spread messages of hope, courage, and understanding to create a better world. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.